Good crew going. Thanks everyone for joining us. We just hit the 1 o'clock mark, so we'll go ahead and get started. We put a lot of content together for you guys today. We're going to try to keep it really tactical and share some best practices. And then we'll take questions at the end. But if you want to put your questions in the chat, feel free to do that as well. Awesome. So I am going to pull up our presentation and get us started. Apps, share screen. Okay, we're going to go and do infinity very quickly. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Lauren Wadsworth, and I run the Global Sales Development Team at Segment. I am here with Sienna Atkinson, who runs our Enterprise Sales Development segment at Segment. Sienna, if you want to just say hello and introduce yourself. You might be on mute. Can you hear me? Sienna? Uh-oh. Can you guys hear me on the phone?
Yeah, we can hear you, Lauren.
Thank you guys. Okay, maybe, I don't know, Sienna, maybe want to try logging in again and we can just go from there. Sorry guys, bear with us. Technical difficulties. Okay, I think she's gonna try to log back in. So I'll just go over before sharing my screen just to make sure she gets back in the chat. What we're really going to be covering today is we're going to talk about how our team has been able to double productivity and performance since we've started working from home since COVID. And the reason I asked Sienna to join, not only does she manage our enterprise section, but she also she onboarded remotely. She started here in April, and so I wanted her to kind of share some of her some of the things that she was able to do to onboard remotely, build trust with the team, while working remote, and then also onboard people remotely as well. Sienna, I see your back end. Is your sound working yet?
Yeah. For some reason, like right when you started recording at the dot, all my audio went out, but I am good now.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're back. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again so we can jump in, and I won't be able to see like the chat window or anything, so if there are chats, feel free to surface those up since this is going on my screen. Okay, thank you guys for bearing with us. Let's get started. So we'll talk about how to motivate remotely, how we've optimized our outreach. And again, hopefully we tried to keep this really tactical and actually share exact specific examples of what we're doing so that it's not just conceptual type of stuff. We'll talk about how we've reprioritized our leads and gotten really tighter alignment with marketing. And then we're going to talk about sales enablement. So something that we've continued to do throughout work from home and everything is continue to run internal interviews for SDRs for the AE role. And we've really doubled down on how we prepare them for that role and get them ready for the next role, because we have some time back in our day now that we're not hiring and in hyper growth mode like crazy. Okay, so first, I just wanted to show the results before we dive into how we got there. I only for productivity, I'm just showing phone right now because it's something that I actually expected to dip quite a bit. And I've talked to some other industry leaders in sales development over at Snowflake, Okta, Trey. I know that they've seen similar results. So I'm hoping for those of you that are joining us live today have seen similar results like this for your team. We've really doubled down on the amount of call blitzes that we're having, or power hours, whatever you like to call them. And we've really doubled down on focusing on conversations that we're having. And so as you can see, I didn't even want to show before Q1, which is starts in February for us, because it was just atrocious in terms of our call numbers and conversation numbers. We weren't using the phone that much as a channel. And so you can see in March, we started climbing up. The call count trends are very similar to both of these graphs. And then you can see in April, we hit our peak We went a little bit back down in May, and right now we're halfway through June. We're expecting for it to be our best month yet in terms of conversations and meetings booked. So that's been a great channel for us. For performance, I just wanted to highlight for qualified opportunities prior to March, we were averaging about 127 stage 2 qualified opportunities in the pipeline. After March, we've had a 43% increase, and our average has been 182 qualified opportunities. What I really attribute that to is a few things. One, it's really the outbound motion that we're running now and the workflow and the process that we've put in place. We were very much so reliant on a lot of high intent demo requests inbound, and we've seen that drop a bit month over month since COVID has happened. And even though what we provide does really help companies accelerate digitally, we've still seen that MQL volume drop by 15 to 20%, and so we've had to double down on our outbound that we're doing. And then in terms of performance, and this is just looking at it quarterly, we were averaging 371 QOs prior to Q1, which for us is February through April. And you can see in Q1, we hit our all-time high of 521 qualified opportunities, which was super exciting and a big record for our team. That's the highest we've ever gotten in a quarter. And then we're forecasting this quarter to be even higher. And so, wanted to share that a little bit so that we can dive into how we got there and some of the changes that we've made to pivot really quickly. So, Sayana, I want to start with you, and I wanted you to speak to how you've been managing. You onboarded remotely. You had probably never met anybody that directly reports into you in person yet. And so, can you speak to what that's been like and how you've been able to navigate that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lauren, for having me today. For everyone, I am the Enterprise SDR Manager. I manage the outbound team, so I have about 10 direct reports. I was onboarded in mid-April, so I am still fairly new. And yes, have not met one of my 10 direct reports, which is killing me. I think, for anyone else that is joining a new company in this time, it's a challenge that we might not have really ever even imagined before. And so like for me, I really think of myself as an extrovert, where I pride myself on building relationships in small little interactions, whether it's having lunch with a coworker or, going in the elevator, running in and out of conference rooms together. And so all of that is kind of lost. And it's been really hard. But I think the main thing for me that I really wanted to focus on in managing a new team and being a new manager is to really focus on building trust. And the way to do that, is mostly just getting to know the team on a personal level, scheduling honestly a lot of Zoom meetings with the team, but for different focuses and different themes, taking the time to, step away from Zoom, have one-on-ones over the phone, go for a quick walk with your SDR to really just build that trust, especially in terms of productivity and motivating the team. As Lauren kind of mentioned, people's inboxes are probably so full right now because we aren't in an office and we don't have those interactions to, finish projects, complete things, even just have little communication. So my big main focus for my team is just to really increase the phone productivity because people still are picking up the phones. And so, we've organized call-ups or power hours, but the most successful way that I've found it is really to encourage ownership for my SDRs. Calling can be pretty lonely if you're doing it in your house. And so, if I put an hour on the calendar for my team to organize, to make 40 dials, I found that it wasn't as successful as if I encouraged one of their teammates to create the calendar invite, to make a theme, to hop on in the beginning of the power hour for, 5 minutes in the very beginning, just to do a quick role play of find a top prospect that you want, practice your pitch with them. And then for those remaining 55 minutes to go out and make your dials, and then to all come back on Zoom, talk about any wins you had, talk about any connects you had where you think you could have done better, and kind of actually putting that ownership on your SDRs really help to motivate the team and to kind of get that positive mindset going on a daily basis. Yeah,
I love that. And I love having them take ownership. It's definitely, you see such an increase. Also, for those of you who do use Zoom, the breakout room function for role plays, we love those. We use them all the time. And we try to have themes for each week or each month, whether it's new messaging that's, that's changed post-COVID, kind of getting people to really adopt that messaging, whether it's follow-up from a recent digital event or webinar that we had, role-playing specifically, what were the 3 bullet points that we want to know about that webinar before we start reaching out to these leads. So I think having a theme to it as well also really helps. And I love those breakout rooms. Okay, thank you, Santa. So next, I wanted to talk about, and I wanted Santa specifically to share about this because it's been a huge win for our team and really helped. We'll talk about a little bit more about marketing alignment on later as well. But I also, something that Santa implemented when she first started here was the STR Scoop. And so, Santa, what is an STR Scoop? And what is that effect, or what's been the effect or impact on your team from starting to send these out?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I first started at Segment, I just realized that there wasn't much, that there was room for improvement in terms of alignment with marketing and SDRs. Especially since all of conferences and all events are being held virtually, that was a great opportunity for my SDRs to be calling people, to be inviting them to any events, to get some registrants. And that also helped us have a lot more warm conversations so that my SDRs didn't really feel like they were making such cold calls in a time, in a global pandemic when you really should have a purpose for calling someone. So I started working on this idea of an SDR Scoop, which is basically an email that gets sent out to the SDRs once every 2 weeks. And it's basically a skim of all new pieces of marketing content. So I found that marketing was putting all of these great customer stories out, getting these new product releases, setting up landing pages for webinars and virtual conferences. But if my SDRs didn't know about it, then how could my SDRs kind of be seen as these thought leaders, as these leaders in the space that Segment really prides itself on being? So we needed to create an alignment. So basically the email is just a skim of all of the top pieces of content. It's pushed directly to them. It's kind of a one-stop shop because this information lives in so many different places, and it's hard to expect your SDRs to go out and find the landing page for the webinar so that they can speak about it on a cold call. And then they've been actually really successful to where AEs have asked to be on the email thread as well, so that now SDRs and AEs, when they meet together for their weekly one-on-ones, they can kind of look at the SDR Scoop together, see what pieces of content, like, hey, this customer story that we just released about, someone in the restaurant industry, we just had that call with that restaurant group last week. This would be a great piece of content to send as a nurture or a follow-up piece before our scheduled demo. So it just kind of helps get the SDRs, the account executives, and the marketing teams all aligned. And like I mentioned before, these are kind of things that in a normal world where we were all working in an office, it might be much easier to align and to hear what the marketing team is doing. But I just felt like our teams were kind of working in silos, especially because of the working from home policy, so that this kind of helped to bring everyone together and encourage that collaboration.
Yeah, it's been great. And other teams, I know our commercial team adopted this pretty quickly after, because it was so helpful for the enterprise team. And I love that you were able to pioneer that and then get some more buy-in. And it's been really useful for people. And so just like Santa mentioned with marketing alignment, that's been a really big focus for us right now, especially because we have some more time to get tighter aligned, to figure out how do we work in tandem so that when you're launching a campaign, we're aware of what's our, give us a briefing, or have us, have one of our SDRs attend a webinar so that they can come back to the team and say, hey, here's what this was about. So that we're speaking and we sound knowledgeable, and it's also increasing our thought leadership. So industry-related conferences or industry-related content is also great for the team too, just in terms of thought leadership and increasing that domain knowledge. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to still, in the same vein of marketing alignment, speak to that a little bit, but I'm going to share, I just had to talk about Revdrop. This is the best consultant partner I've ever worked with in my time, in my career, and has been amazing for us. And so I won't, talk all about exactly all of the different things that we've done, but I'll talk about some specific things that we've done most recently in this last quarter, especially with working from home, realizing that we really need to optimize our workflow and our process now versus later, because we don't have that luxury of being in person and helping people do it on a one-on-one basis. Like this needs to be something that's rolled out across the team now. So Revdrop, what they are, they're they help you optimize your process and people and everything related to your sales engagement platform. So like a Sales Loft or an Outreach, we personally use Outreach.io. And so when I came into this role 8 months ago, we had over 4,000 sequences that they weren't being used, all of them, but they were in our Outreach. We had endless snippets and templates. We had so many different users that were part of different older teams that didn't exist anymore. And so they really just helped us clean up all of the back end so that we could really optimize the front end. So that was 2 quarters ago. This past quarter, these past 3 months, what we've really been focused on is setting up user roles, setting up triggers and automation, which I'll speak to a little bit more, and then also customized revenue attribution reports to show which sequences are working best, which ones are we seeing the most return, which steps are the best that we should move up closer to the top. And it's been really astronomical in terms of the impact that it's had for our team. And so in terms of like our reactive outreach, that's all of I kind of break it into 4 different categories: our content downloads, workspace signals when people use our freemium product, website activity, so activity signals, and then event registrants, attendees, and no-shows. And so we've broken it down by tier in terms of how we personalize or automate the follow-up. And that I can go into, that could be a whole nother session. But what I really wanted to talk about that changed my life and my SDR's lives this past month and a half is, and now every time that we have a webinar or an event, like let's say somebody attends or they no-show, they'll be automatically imported from a report in Salesforce right into Outreach into a post-event follow-up sequence. So those tasks will automatically be triggered for SDRs. They'll be high priority if they're in their tier 1 or tier 2 accounts, and they'll have some heavier personalization up front and more calls throughout the sequence. If it's a lower tier account that we deem is not as high priority, it'll be in a more automated sequence. But the first step is always personalized so that, just to make sure, do you actually want to reach out to this person? Do you want to put them back in nurture? Or if this is, a CTO of a tier 3 account, maybe I actually want to put them into my hyper-personalized event follow-up sequence. And so we've started creating different snippets for the different events that we have so that they can just interchange those. And we've done this in all of these buckets, but I think it's been really powerful in terms of just making it, SDRs don't have to manually go to their dashboard every day and add people one by one into their sequences. And it differs a little bit depending on what tier they're in. So that's been really helpful. And there's a ton of other stuff that I could speak to, but I think in that same vein of marketing alignment, this has been a really big win for our team and just ensured that our lead response time has decreased so much. We've increased the amount of meetings and opportunities that we're booking with low intent, which is all in this category right here, by 160%. I think in the past, we just weren't following up with those either in a timely manner or just at all. It's just, distracting to have to go to a dashboard or go to a report and, manually add people all the time. And this just really helps ensure that follow-up. And then also we know that anybody that's engaged with our content or knows our brand name is going to be higher converting anyways. So that has been a big win. Okay, last topic, and then we'll go into questions, which I'm really excited for, is our sales readiness and sales preparedness. So like I talked about, we're in really high growth mode. We've kind of paused our hiring for now, which, can kind of seem a little daunting or scary at first. But then, looking at my calendar, what it looks like now versus prior to March, it was, all days in interviews, tons of time spent onboarding, and I think that was the same for all of my first line managers as well. And so it's given us more time back in our day to kind of get our house in order and also really double down on enablement. So I'd say 90% of our SDRs want to move into sales or customer facing roles. And so I talked about how we're still doing and conducting those interviews regardless of role openings on the AE team, so that when there is openings, they'll know that they'll be slotted in, or they need to, redo their interview for the next interview cycle. But we've also been doing just to get them ready for that role and to get them more prepared, we've started, and it's actually really been beneficial for us too, but we started doing weekly forecast reviews with them so that they're getting into that motion. We started doing monthly pipeline and opportunity reviews. And a lot of times, like the RDs and the RVPs, they'll even join, which has been great for our sales and SDR collaboration and alignment. We also just did, for the first time ever, our first SDR QBRs. And so, Sayana, I know your team wrapped up with these yesterday, and it was a look back on Q1, which finished May 1st was the start of our Q2. So we're doing it a little like a mid Q2 QBR right now. But it was a look back on Q1 and then their progress so far in Q2. Can you speak to like what that looked like for your team? Like how was it helpful for them? What did that look like? And like how was it also helpful for you as a manager?
Yeah, definitely. So this was like you just mentioned, this was our first QBR that we've ever done. So we definitely were working out the kinks. But I think the biggest piece that they took away was that, every month, the months go by so fast. And when you're on a monthly quota and the quarters are flying by and you're in a role as an SDR, basically most people are in a role to an SDR to become an AE. And so they're just so focused on something that is so far down the line, but it comes up so fast. So really creating a quarterly business review to encourage them and to really create this type of self-reflection was just so important to my team. You can be a successful SDR or you can be an unsuccessful SDR, but you might not actually know what's creating that success and what areas you need to improve and what areas you're already strong in. So basically the QBR was a 30-minute presentation where every single SDR presented yesterday, like you mentioned, kind of a Q1 look back and a Q2 quarter to date review. And it just enabled them to get really granular with their metrics to understand, to dive into their conversion rates and how successful they were last quarter, in booking meetings in tier 1 accounts versus tier 3 accounts, what type of titles they were booking meetings with, where those deals are now, what stage they are, kind of how their pipeline is developing. And so it really encouraged them to, first off, just really kind of think about the progress that they've made and where they can go. But the most powerful piece of feedback that I've received is just that, a manager can can create some problem diagnosis, and a manager can encourage you to look at one conversion rate and hone in on that. But it's not really, it can be so kind of useless until they come to those findings on their own. And so yesterday they all had action plans and they had goals moving forward for this quarter, and they set their own conversion rate goals and their own, dial goals. They created kind of their own workflow and their own expectations for themselves. And so I think just moving forward, it will be a lot easier for me to hold them accountable for those numbers because they've explicitly stated that those are the numbers that they want to be held to, rather than, the manager throwing a number at them for kind of these expectations. And so I think just moving forward, if we can do this every quarter to where you can work out the kinks a lot better and the presentation flows, it not only does it prep them for sales readiness and even just get them ready to make presentations to sales leaders and to their manager, but also to really just understand kind of the extent of their performance and how much they're impacting the entire business. So I highly recommend.
Yeah. The other thing that we did throughout all of these is that we had a scorecard for QBRs. And so managers and myself, as we're going through, we're taking notes and our takeaways. And we're also, grading 1 through 10 for different things. And a lot of it was like, your own self-diagnosis, your applications, or business findings, and how did you apply that to the broader team? We had our marketing and our operations and some of the RDs as well, or the AEs for the SDRs jump on, and they would come in intermittently. So it was really good for alignment, and also the way that we incentivize SDRs to actually, produce like high quality QBRs and practice these presentations and put some effort into this is that we told them, based on these grades and on these scores, the top 3 QBRs you'll get to present to the head of commercial and the head of enterprise sales, who they'll want to be interviewing with, in the coming quarters. And so I think that also really motivated them to put some effort into this and do some deeper diagnosis. Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, so that is all of the content that we had. I'm going to flip back over here and stop sharing my screen. I feel like I'm going into the mirror worlds in a carnival whenever I look back at that. But thank you guys so much for listening. We'd love to take your questions. I see here in one from Paul Walland, guessing Segment has a primarily account-based territory and lead assignment structure. Yes, we are account-based. We have a tiering. We have like our accounts, they're scored and they're tiered. But we do have them all assigned to SDRs and account owners. For lead assignment, it's just based on if you own the account or not. For inbound routing, we do it a little bit differently, like for high intent inbound. But for everything else, it is based on account ownership. Okay. Any other questions or anything that you guys would like to know? Or maybe a question for the audience is just, what's been working for you while working remotely? Like, we'd love to learn from the people on this call too, like what's been working and what's been really helpful, if anyone wants to share. Okay, another question. Have you made any changes to contests or spiffs? Do you want to speak to that, Santa?
Why don't you start? Because
the bigger spiff that we have right now is we're doing a partner campaign with one of our partners over at Looker. And so the spiff is basically around how many meetings you book with Looker customers. So that's like the only spiff that we have going right now. We try to, or at least for me, I don't know, ever since I read Drive by Daniel Pink, I have been like very anti-spiff if it's around like money, just because I think like people thrive off of like pride and like competition more so than the actual like dollar amount. And it's also sometimes I think creates like this negative environment or incentive where it's like all about the money and driving toward this versus like getting creative or, trying something new. Mm-hmm. But we typically like even for like our Looker spiff, it's primarily based on like the top 5 SDRs. They get a virtual lunch with our CEO and the Looker CEO for one of the phases. And so we try to do it more based on around, like developing your personal brand internally versus actual cash incentives. But good question. Curious if anyone else has made changes to contests and spiffs. We've done like East Coast versus West Coast stuff. We're trying to do it with our partners over at Looker. We're trying to do like a team competition where we're doing a call blitz on, they're doing one and we're doing one and seeing who can book the most meetings. Mm-hmm. We're still figuring out the logistics for that one, but definitely creates some fun, good atmosphere. Okay, what other team activities or exercises have you found useful while being remote to keep everyone engaged and connected? Do you want to talk about like the stand-ups and that stuff, Santa?
Yeah. So every morning at 8 a.m. we have just a quick 15-minute stand-up. We combine commercial and enterprise. So I guess, one morning of the week we forecast separately as teams, but the other ones, like Wednesdays, someone on the enterprise team and SDR leads just a quick stand-up. So they typically choose a theme for the virtual background. They choose, the exercise that we're going to go through, and it's about like typically a 10-minute exercise. Sometimes we break out into breakout rooms. Sometimes if the group is small enough because people have calls or one-on-ones scheduled, we'll just stay in the bigger group. Today, last week, our marketing team rolled out a COVID playbook. So yesterday, we all went into small breakout rooms and just practice certain discovery questions that you could use or leverage in times in COVID that are related to kind of, business changes in business priorities. Today, one SDR wanted to break out into rooms and just have everyone walk through their own to-do list so that you can kind of vocalize all the things that you need to achieve today. And then we have some evening huddles, but we actually found that it was every day and that it was kind of creating a Zoom fatigue. And since we are going to be working from home for kind of an indefinite amount, we limited that to just Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And Wednesday is a team trivia that either a manager or the team leads. So kind of a mixture of in the morning, like more goal focused and, role player exercise focused. And then in the afternoons, kind of just a time for the team to come together. Just because like we aren't seeing each other at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been good.
Mm-hmm.
We're also trying to do a socially distanced like park day.
Yeah.
Our team, our company gave us like some refresh Fridays over summer and some other like Friday holidays. And so one of the ones that we have an afternoon off, we're trying to organize some social distance, little game day and just hang out with them because it's been quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eternity. Feels like it.
I know.
Yeah. I don't see any other questions. So unless any pop in the next minute or two, we'll probably sign off, but would love to connect with all of you on LinkedIn. Really appreciate everyone joining us. Thanks, Christian. Thank you so much for joining and engaging. We love this type of stuff and just getting to learn from other industry and sharing tactics. So thank you so much for joining and for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Oh, here's a question.
Oh, yeah, let's answer it.
What are some good games you can play when English isn't some team members' first language?
I love when we did Jeopardy in the past, but I don't know how you can do that, like language-wise. That's a really good question. We do have like several people who English isn't their first language, but they all do like pretty fluently. That's a good question, though. I'll have to think on that one. If you connect with me, Ashley, maybe we'll. Greg said a math game. Yeah, that could be.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, everyone else.
Thanks, everyone.
Jumping on. Yeah, excited to connect with you guys offline and have a great rest of your day. Bye.